Hello there and welcome to another React tutorial. This is the fifth part of the Chrome extension series. So along with the 4 small apps we just built, these ones, today we're going to tack on a to-do app which is going to be slightly bigger at some point. So let's take a look. So we can add to-dos, for example. Let's say build something. Hit enter and it's just going to add this to the end of the list. Okay, we can check them so they kind of get grayed out, or we can edit them. Let's say put something today, hit enter and it gets refreshed. And let me show you something today right now. Let's say, okay, you can see that the rest of the characters have been replaced with 3 dots here, so it has a limited width for each item. Okay, so like I said, you can check them or you can delete it. So in case we want to refresh, it's just gonna be saved, it's gonna be there, it's gonna be persistent. All right, let's get into it. So in the last lesson we left at this one, we made the crypto app. So let's comment this. And we're gonna now create another folder for this new to-do app. Okay, I'll say to-do, okay, enter, and then I'm gonna make a JavaScript file and a CSS file as well. Okay, and here we're just gonna say stateless functional component. It's gonna be called to-do. Alright, so we're gonna have a simple to-do card that's gonna hold and wrap a set of items. So let me first change this syntax to React, and then I'm gonna say to-do card is gonna have a to-do wrapper, which in turn has a heading with this class name to-do heading. All right, and along with that we're gonna have a form. It's gonna be to-do form, and it's going to have an input, the class name of to-do input, and finally a button with a class name btn at. I hope this is the whole thing beneath. Alright, so let's go here, do that. Hopefully that's it. So let's add some heading here. We say to-dos, and this is going to be the buttons that's going to add to-dos. So let's see what we have in the browser. So I'm going to say to-do, and right here we get it. Just have a simple heading and input and a button. Okay, cool. All right, let's go ahead and start dealing with this input. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is to hold the text that's going to be typed in this input element. So we'll create a hook for that, and I'm just going to call it to do, and then we're going to set to do. Okay, and we're going to use state, and this is going to be, fix that for now. Alright, next I'll go back to the input here, and I'm going to need to handle it. Okay, so whenever this input changes, we're going to get that event, and we're going to set to do to what's being typed here. So this target. Now let's try logging that to the console. So I'll say console log to do. And right here I'm going to say to do, so you can see it, but the first keystroke hasn't been triggered. You can see that because use state is asynchronous, so it's going to take some time until it figures out what to do. Okay, so it's showing up here, which means we can now take that value and show it somewhere else. So we can display it under the form, for instance. Right here, we're going to say to do. Save that. There you go. We can see it here. Now that's cool, but that's not the goal. We want to display the list of added to-dos right here underneath the form. So if I say to-do, enter, it's going to refresh the page, and it's not even going to add that. So we're going to need to handle that with another hook, which is going to be reserved for the to-dos array. Okay, so all I'm going to do, I'm just going to duplicate this, and here I'm going to say to-dos, and here as well. This is going to be an array this time. Alright, so now when I click the add button, I want to add a new to-do. So we're going to handle that now. So in this form, I'm just going to get rid of that, say this, and here, whenever I submit, what I want to do, I'm going to create a function called add to-do. So this button needs to be, it's going to have a type of submit. Alright, and now let's go ahead and create this function here. Okay, post equal to this. So the first thing I want to do is to add an event here, because as you have noticed, when I click add, the page is going to be refreshed. So to prevent that default behavior, we're gonna do that. So e.prevent default, and then I'm gonna have a new to-dos array, just like that. That's going to take the previous to-dos, and it's just gonna return a brand new array out of this previous to-dos. Okay, so as you can see, using the spread operator, now inside this new to-dos array, we're gonna create a new to-do. So the first thing we need is an ID, so we can identify each to-do by its unique ID, right? So we're gonna use the date object for the sake of simplicity, and we're gonna get time, so it returns a very big number that's gonna make it special. Or we can use UUID, for instance, which gives us unique IDs. Then the next thing is gonna be the juicy part, the to-do text itself, which is gonna be the to-do. So here we're gonna put the actual to-do that is going to take the value that has been submitted. Alright, now once we do that, at the end we're gonna do to-do. And what does that mean? Since this is a new to-do item, we're gonna reuse again the spread operator to spread this new item. Hopefully this makes sense. Now up here we have declared this new to-dos array, but we're not gonna get any response if we just click that button. So I'm gonna need to reset the to-dos array to these new to-dos. Alright, too many to-do spelled, I'm sorry about that. And at the end I'm just gonna log these to-dos. Now let's save this and see what happens here. Say 1, 2. So right here we have got the first array, which is empty, and then here we got the second array, which is filled by one single element which is 1. This was the first item we created. So this may seem confusing because we have clicked a couple of times and we just get 1 here, and this is completely normal because this is how use state works, like I said before. So we're setting the to-dos here, but we can't see them right after we set them here. This is going to take some time. If we do something outside of that, we can see that. Alright, so here we've got the initial value, which is this one. Alright, now one quick way to show the current actual value of to-dos could be with a use effect hook that's going to trigger what happens to that specific element. Let me show you how. So right here I'm going to say use effect, and I'm going to pass in right here what I'm going to say. I'm just going to say console.log to-dos, and we should add a dependency array as well that could be left empty, which means it's going to render only once when the component is rendered for the first time. Or we can append some specific element whereby the use effect is going to re-render every time one of the elements has changed. So right here I'm just going to say, if the to-dos has been changed, then rerun this use effect. Okay, let's save it, refresh. Got a problem, minified react, that should be this nonsense select that. Alright, let's save. Fresh. Cool. So now we can see the to-dos array shown here, and it's empty. And that's true, because the first and the initial state is empty. Okay, so if I add something here, there we go. You can see, well, we get this empty array. Well, that should be this one. Refresh, and do that again. Alright, we don't get that empty one, so this is the this one gets shown at the first render, and this is the second one, which is the one that gets shown when the to-dos array has been changed. This is the item. Just don't worry about these things, we're gonna get rid of them later. Alright, that works fine. So let's go ahead and render these to-dos in a div. So under the form right here, I'm just gonna get the to-dos array, and I'm gonna map through it so that for each to-do here, I'm just gonna return a div with class of to-do item. And this one is just gonna have a span element, which is going to hold the actual to-do. So I'll say to-do dot to-do text. Okay, I'll save that. Alright, each child in a list should have a unique key. Alright, this is the key error, the key warning. Actually, it could work, but it's a warning, so you can fix this warning by adding the key here. And since we have the added an ID for each to do, so let's put it as the key prop here. Refresh, say 1, 2, and there we go. Now I can see that. Cool. Now let's go ahead and add more controls to each to-do item. So we want to be able to delete to-dos. So the first thing I want to do here is to add another wrapper for these controls, and I'm gonna say to do controls, and then here I'm gonna have the first one, which is gonna be a button that's gonna say delete. So when I click on this button, I'm gonna run a function called delete to do, and this function needs an argument, so we're gonna pass in the to do ID so we can figure out what is the actual to do we're looking for. Alright, now let's go ahead and create it. So underneath this one, I'm gonna say const. We're gonna do something pretty similar to the add to do, but a little smaller. So here I'm gonna say again new to dos is now equal to the previous to dos, and then here we're gonna this time return. You can see this is a shorthand, so instead of doing this and then this, we can just do the following. We just open a parentheses, and this is gonna return the thing that you wanna render. So right here, we're gonna take this previous to-dos, all right, and what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna keep every to-do that has an ID that is different from the selected one. So we're going to filter them by their IDs. So I'm going to say for each to-do, if the to-do ID is different from the given ID that's going to be passed right here, then we're going to keep it. If it matches, then we're going to get rid of it. Okay, and that should be it. And then here we're going to reset the to-dos this time. Since the to-dos array is going to be changed, and the number of them is going to change, so we're going to have to reset this to the new to-dos. Hopefully this works fine. Got an error here. Yeah, you can see there's a typo here. Alright, if I click delete, this gets deleted, and that one as well. Now it's an empty array. Cool. By the way, there is a bunch of other different ways to make a delete handler. You can use the spread operator, for instance, and get the same result. Now, before we move on, I don't want to keep the submitted value in the form. So when the value gets submitted, it should be deleted. So this is going to happen when we finish adding a to-do. So here I'm going to say set to-do empty. Save it. Say 1. Well, it's not cleared. I guess this is a problem with the value attribute. I'm sure this is it. So we're going to say to do. Save. Alright, not worry about this warning. It just needs a refresh. So I'll say 1, enter, and there we go. It's gone. Awesome. Now let's go ahead and add another button this time. So I'm going to make an edit feature. So underneath this one, I'm going to say, I'm just going to duplicate this thing, and I'm just going to say here, edit. And then here, I'm going to say, edit to do. All right. Now this one requires a little more effort. So we're going to take the selected to do ID and we're going to compare it to something. So we can decide whether we're going to show the to do like that, or we're going to open a form for that specific to do, just like here. So let's say we wanted to edit this one, for example. It's going to return this form. If we don't, we're going to click cancel, and it returns the to do itself. So we're going to create another hook that's going to hold the to do ID, so we can compare it and see if it's the required to do ID or not. So what I'm going to say, post, and I'm going to call it edited to do. I'm going to set it, as always, just going to use state, and it should be empty. Okay, so here we made this edit to do. No, right here we want to set the edited to do to this. Now instead of this, this is not the actual setter we're looking for. It's actually set edited to do instead. So when we click on this button, we're going to take that to do ID and going to put it into this edited to do hook, and then we're going to use this hook to decide what to do with that ID. Alright, now based on edited to do state, I'm going to decide whether I should display the to do itself or a simple form for editing that specific to do. So let's just go ahead and do that, and this is going to be made again inside the to do. So right here I'm going to make a simple to do wrapper this time, and I'm just going to select all of these things. Now I'm going to put them right here. Format it. Cool. And now here, I'm going to do that. If the to-do ID is equal to the edited to-do ID, if the past ID is equal to this one, then we're going to return a simple to-do wrapper. Okay, and this is going to hold a form. If this is the case, we're going to show that. Else, we're going to show the actual to-do itself. Okay, let's move that up here and let's save it. All right, no problem. Now, if we are on edit mode, we're going to show, like I said, a form. So here, we're going to have a simple form. Okay, and inside it, we're going to have an input. Type text again. And this is going to have a class name of to do input, as always, and another one for the edit mode. And we're going to trigger some text being typed in this input. So whenever we write something here, we're going to set the edited text to what's being typed in this target. Alright, so this is going to be another hook, yet another one. So here, let's say const, say edited text. I'm going to set it, let's say use state empty. Now, let's go ahead and create the edit to do function. So when we submit, we're going to say edit to do. All right, and we're going to need to pass the to do ID, just like we did with the delete function. Okay, so underneath that one, we're going to say const. We're going to need an ID here, like I said, and then here, this is going to be almost like the add to do, with a little difference in it. So let's see how to do it. And the first thing, as always, is taking that new to-dos array. All right, and I'm going to say this time it's going to be a little different. So what I'm going to say, I'm going to take a new instance of the to-dos array, the existing to-do array. Okay, and then we're going to map through that, copy, and we're going to take each item. I'm going to make a quick check here. So if the given ID is equal to the to-do ID here, then we're going to reset the to-do text, and we're going to set that to the edited text. Hopefully that makes sense. And once that's finished, we're going to return that to-do. And since this is going to change, that means the to-dos array is going to change, which means we're going to reset it back to this new value. So new to-dos. All right, and lastly, I'm going to need to clear the edited to-do ID so we can move on. Okay, so I've been writing too many things. I hope this doesn't crush the app. So anyway, let's see what happens. So I'm going to say 1, 2. Now let's try editing 1, for instance. 1 edited. Enter. Oh man, it's refreshing the page. This is a problem here. So we're gonna fix that by adding an event here, as always, and then we're gonna say event default. Okay. Click edit. 1 new. What's wrong with that? Where is this function? All right, this requires an event here. So we passed the to-do ID here, which is coming from this one, but we don't have an event handler, so we need to pass that as well. All right, let's refresh this. Let's see, 1, 2, and click edit here. 1 updated. See 1. You can see 1 has been updated, but it's still shown here. Well, I figured this was still there because the to-do ID hasn't been cleared. So, like we said here, if the to-do ID is equal to the edited to-do, that means we're going to still need to show that, and the form is going to be shown. It's going to stick there. Even when you submit, it's not going to hide it and show this instead. And that's because we need to clear this edited to-do value. Okay, so here I'm going to say set edited to-do to empty, or I'm just going to put it null instead. Okay, here if I click enter, and this time it shows the actual to-do. Cool. So let's try edit again. You can see the text has gone, and we don't want to see this behavior, and that's because, I guess this is because the value attribute on that input here. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to say value, and I'm going to say to do text. All right, let's save it. It's showing here. Just don't care about these warnings. So now I can see it. If I click edit, it is going to be here. If I click edit this one, now I can't type. Well, that doesn't seem to be the solution. So this time it's gonna be another attribute. So instead of this one, I'm gonna say default. It's gonna be the default value, and this one is going to allow us to type something else here. Dated, enter, and there we go. So the default value here holds the old value, but it doesn't impose the value attribute, okay? A bit tricky, but you should get the hang of it. So far, everything works as expected. Now I want to add in a cancel button so that it helps us undo things quickly. So if I click edit, I'm gonna need to write something or just hit enter so I can get out of this place. So instead of that, I'm just gonna add a cancel button in this form. So here I'm gonna add a button and I'm gonna say cancel, and when this is clicked, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna reset the edited to do to empty, so the ID is gonna get cleared and we can see the to do item instead. It's gonna have the class name, to do controls, and cancel. Let's test this now. Click edit, cancel. Awesome, that's working. So we have made a remarkable progress in terms of functionalities up until now. So let's add some CSS to reward ourselves for the efforts we have made throughout this whole period. So I'm just gonna bring in the CSS file and paste all the content right here. So this is a simple set of styles for the to-do card. It has a fixed width and height, has a black background, round corners, some padding, align self to get everything centered, and then we have the to-dos wrapper. It's got some padding and it has a fixed height, and we have set the overflow to auto here. And let me show you what this means. The to-do wrapper is fixed to 270 pixels, and when we want to add something, that height cannot include everything. It's gonna add the scroll bar and makes the overflow line to auto. And then we got this to do heading. We got the checkbox here. I'm gonna do that later. And this is the to do controls, display flex centered. And here's a to do import. It's transparent, so you can see here. I got no border, no outline, and it has this thing which is flex property being set to 1, and that's gonna fill the remaining space. Okay, and we have the to do item, just simple styles. I think it's all right, it's all simple. And there's this to do text class. This is a special one, like I showed you in the beginning. These triple dots, so it sets the max width to 230 pixel, and if it exceeds this number, it's gonna set the overflow to hidden, text overflow ellipses, and white space to no wrap. All of these combined gives us the ability to limit the number of characters being shown right here. And this is the to do controls here again, and this is for every item inside the to do controls. And what else? This is the btn add here, simple stuff. Okay, what else? And this is the cancel button. If I save that, put it here, alright, save, there we go. Let's say 1. Alright, it's gone right here. There's a problem with the flex properties, I guess. Let me see that. Alright, I found the problem. It was because of this typo here. It should have been to-dos wrapper and not to-do wrapper. Okay, and then you can see them. So 2. There's a problem with the color. No, it's not the color. All of them are being sticked to the end. These to do text shouldn't be placed here. They're gonna have to be at the beginning. So instead, I'm just gonna take this and I'm gonna put it at the beginning. Save it. There we go. That's better. All right. Now I'm gonna add another control. Whenever a to do is finished, I want to check it. So I'll add a checkbox input to mark to dos if they're done. So before the delete button, I'm gonna say input, and this is gonna be a checkbox input this time. And whenever this changed, it doesn't care about click. And I'm gonna say once that clicked or changed, I'm gonna make a toggle function. So that's going to toggle the to do state, and we're gonna pass in the to do ID, because when a specific to do is checked, I don't want the rest of the to dos to be checked as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and create this one. Well, I'm gonna pass in the ID, and I'm gonna do something similar to the edit and delete functions we just created earlier. So here we're gonna take the previous to-dos, say new to-dos, and this is gonna be equal to a copy of this to-dos array, and we're gonna map through that as always, and we're gonna take each to-do, and what I'm gonna do, okay, I'm gonna check if the to-do.id is equal to that ID, and I'm gonna say to-do dot is completed gonna be equal to-do is not completed this time. Okay, right, so if the previous if the to-do was completed, is now gonna be uncompleted, and vice versa. And then we're just gonna return that new to-do, and here we're gonna reset the to-dos to the new one. Alright, that's cool, but just before we save that and start wrapping our heads, let's first add this new property to the add to do handler. So right here, I'm gonna say is completed. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna make it false by default. Alright, let's just give it a try. So here we've got this checkbox, and if I see here is the first item here. Let's see, income is completed and is now true. And if we see the second one, if I click is completed this time, there we go, is completed is now set to true. Cool. So you can see it's working, but not exactly as expected. So once I check the box, the to-do color should switch to gray, which doesn't work this time. So again, I forgot to add another class for this pen. So here I'm gonna say last name to-do text, save it. Okay, that doesn't change anything. So here what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna add the completed class name to this pen, and that's gonna give us the ability to change their color to gray. Alright, so right here I'm gonna do that. We're gonna have the to-do text by default, but we're gonna check if to-do dot is completed is equal to true. Then we're gonna add another class called completed. Alright, let's save it. And there we go. Now they're both gray. Awesome. Okay, now let's go ahead and replace the those buttons with some nicer icons. So we're gonna use React icons package. So in the command prompt, you can open a new one, and here just have to say npm install React icons. Right? Run this command because I already have installed them. Okay, so we're gonna use a couple things for now. We're gonna have to change the delete and edit buttons with those couple icons. So alright, we're gonna start with this one. So here I'm just gonna say ri delete bin 6 line. Alright, then I'm gonna have another one which is gonna be ai fill edit. Then we're gonna need to import them. I'm gonna start with this one right here. What we could say, import this one from React icons /ri. Alright, then duplicate this one and just gonna go to there and bring this one back and replace with that one. And this is gonna be AI instead. Now let's save and see what happens. There we go. Now we're gonna need to replace this with this and that with that, right? So what we could do, we can just say, I'm gonna take this one here, and I'm gonna bring in the to-do right here. And then I'm just gonna get rid of those. Okay, save and see. If I click edit, it opens up the edit form. If I click this one as well, there is a problem here. The cancel button should be at the same line. Here there's a problem. I think we're gonna have to move it in or out from the form. Okay, let's move it out, for example. See, there we go. That looks better. All right, so the last thing I want to do is to change that checkbox as well. So we're gonna replace that with another icon instead. You can head on to React icons websites and choose some different icons if you want. So we're gonna get rid of that one in here. I'm gonna change that checkbox input with a couple of different things. So this is gonna be a little bit different. This is not gonna be like switching or swapping up a simple button with an icon. This is gonna be different because here we are handling an onChange event, because this is a built-in element. But when I say, for example, checked, for example, when I say checkbox checked here, this is not an HTML element. This is a custom element coming from the library. So this is gonna be handled with on a click listener. All right. So I'm gonna need a couple of things. We're gonna need an icon when it's checked, and another one when it's unchecked. Let's just import this one. So here, I'm gonna say it's coming from im. All right. Let's save it. There you go, you can see this one. So I'm gonna need another one that's gonna be empty to be able to toggle between both icons, okay? So here, I'm gonna say, if the to-do is completed, then we're gonna do that. We're gonna show the checked icon. And then here, I'm just gonna bring in this one. And this is gonna be on click this time. Okay, and if that's not the case, all right, let's just bring this here. Okay, and here, what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna duplicate this for now, and I'll just change that to be unchecked. And then let's bring this as well. All right, there we go. So if I click that, it gets checked. Click that as well, it gets checked. Okay, so let's get rid of this one. Here we go. Save it. There we have it. I think that looks better. Now let me show you something, because I noticed that when I click on the edit button, I'm gonna need to click again here, and that's not a good behavior though. So whenever I click the edit button here, I want the focus to be set on this input. So again, for the sake of this tutorial, just like we did in the previous tutorials, since we have one single input in that form, we're gonna make a quick handler. So I'll say const set input focus, and this is gonna receive an input, and I'm gonna do that. We're gonna check if the input is not null. Sorry about that. And if that's the case, we're gonna set the focus for this input. Right? So we're gonna need to use this handler whenever we click the edit button, and whenever the editing input is opened. So that one. Whenever this is opened, we'll say ref, and we're gonna pass in this function. So I'll save that. Okay, and if I click edit, there we go. The cursor is showing here. Cool. Now what if I refresh the page? And okay, now when I refresh the page, I want this input to be focused. Okay, so we'll do exactly the same thing, just like we did with this one. So I'll just copy that, and I'll just put it here. Refresh. There you go. That's working. All right. Again, just keep in mind this quick solution works fine with single input form. So if you have 2 or more inputs, this may not fit. So you'd have to opt for something else like useref, which we're going to use in the next tutorial, the bookmarks app. So as you probably have noticed, whenever we refresh the page, everything is gone. There's no to-dos anymore. So we're going to use local storage to save the to-dos that we have added. And this is going to be the same thing we just did in the second component of this series, which is the reading component. And the only difference is the elements we want to save. In the reading app, we saved the username, but here we're gonna save the to-dos. So we're gonna get them with the local storage, just like we did in the previous one. So now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna need some way to take the to-dos array and add it to local storage. This is the first step we need to do. I'll say use effect. So now the first thing I want to do here is to get the to-dos, stringify them, and set them as the value of a new to-dos item that's going to be saved to local storage. So here's what to do. I'm going to say const JSON is equal to JSON.stringify, and we're going to pass in the to-dos array. And the second step is actually say local storage, and then we're going to have to set an item that's going to be called to-dos, which in fact is going to be these to-dos. Right? And finally, we're going to need to trigger the to-dos array to rerun this use effect every time the to-dos have changed. Okay, so here what we can do, say to-dos. Run this again every time to-dos have changed. Now once we have that, we can go right at the top here. The order really matters in this case. We're gonna get these to-dos and then we're gonna show them to the user. So what we could do, we're gonna say use effect again, and then we're gonna do JSON again, and this time it's gonna be local storage dot get item. We're gonna get these to-dos which have this name, which is to-dos again. Alright, but now we're going to parse them because we can't set them as the to-dos array content with the current format. So what we can do, we'll say const, we're going to take these to-dos as the loaded to-dos, and we're going to say JSON.parse, and then we're going to pass this JSON, and at the end we're going to check if these loaded items have actually been loaded. And then if this is the case, we're going to set the to-dos for these loaded to-dos. Alright, and then here, the dependency array. So get rid of this warning. So I'll save that. Alright, if I say 1, 2, refresh the page, there we go, they're still here. And if you want, I can show you that in the application, I guess, in local storage, yeah, right here. You can see this is the list of to-dos, and you can still see that I already have the username stored here, which is of the second tutorial. Yeah, it's still there, and this is the list of everything. Okay, the first item and the second item, 1, 2. Back here. Again, just take care of the order. Just don't put like this one after that one, because that way it's not going to work. Alright, so now that we have finished this to-do app, let's go ahead and check it out. So we're going to need to check this one. Alright, I think it's the last thing. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you liked the video. Like it if you did. I hope you learned something useful today. See you in the last video of this project. hopefully the Bookmarks app.